The massive observation deck of the Imperial vessel Eternal Dominion stretched before Commander Taiho like a cathedral to the stars. He stood with perfect military posture, hands clasped behind his back, watching the blue-green planet on the view screen, Earth. So small from this distance, yet his next conquest. Life support systems hummed softly in the background. The sound always calmed him before a new acquisition. 73 worlds had fallen under his command. Earth would be the 74th. It's quite beautiful, isn't it? The voice belonged to Science Director Jiwoo. She approached with that characteristic quiet grace, her uniform impeccably pressed as always. I've never seen such abundant water on a habitable world. Taiho barely glanced at her. Beauty is irrelevant. The Sovereign Council expects this world added to our territories within the standard cycle. Of course, Commander. Jiwoo tapped at her data tablet, bringing up atmospheric readings. Still, their development curve concerns me. Look at this progression from primitive combustion engines to basic spaceflight. Less than a single century. Many species advance quickly before hitting natural plateaus, Taiho replied dismissively. Our scans show no orbital defense systems, no significant space fleet, nothing that poses any threat to Imperial forces. Through the view screen, Earth's moon passed into view, its cratered surface seemingly lifeless. Taiho watched it with mild curiosity. The hegemony had catalogued thousands of similar natural satellites. Prepare the standard first contact package, he ordered. Demands for surrender, resource allocation requirements, integration protocols, the usual procedure. Young Lieutenant Minho stepped forward from his communications station. Sir, should we include the standard subjugation timeline? Most primitive worlds appreciate knowing how quickly they'll be expected to provide workers for the mineral extraction facilities. Yes, include everything. Taiho waved him away. And send a preliminary report to Grand Admiral Minjae. I want him to know this acquisition will proceed smoothly. As the junior officers hurried to obey, Taiho turned to his tactical display. The hegemony fleet stretched across space behind them, 500 warships, 200 transport vessels, and dozens of specialized mining craft. Standard procedure for integrating a new world into the Empire. Director Jiwoo, what can you tell me about these humans? Taiho asked, studying the planetary data. Jiwoo hesitated. That's actually what concerns me, Commander. Their history is unusual. They've spent most of their recorded time fighting each other. They've nearly destroyed themselves multiple times with increasingly powerful weapons. Many species go through violent developmental periods. Yes, but most outgrow it before achieving spaceflight. These humans... Jiwoo paused, searching for the right words. They've channeled their aggression into technological advancement at an astonishing rate, and they're remarkably adaptable. Different environments, different challenges, they adjust quickly. Taiho smiled thinly. All the more reason to bring them under proper Imperial control before they become a genuine problem. The fleet moved forward, positioning itself beyond the orbit of the Red Planet. Close enough to be detected by Earth's primitive sensors, far. Enough to react to any foolish counterattack. Sir, called Lieutenant Minho, first contact package ready for transmission. Send it on all frequencies, all Earth languages, Taiho commanded. Let's see how quickly they surrender. The message beamed toward Earth, traveling across the void. Demands for complete surrender, requirements for resource tributes, expectations for human labor. The consequences of resistance. On the blue planet below, chaos erupted as the message appeared on every screen, broadcast on every frequency. Governments scrambled, military forces went on high alert, citizens panicked. Deep beneath Geneva, in Chifia 90, a chamber unknown to most of humanity, representatives from every nation gathered in emergency session. The room was austere, just a large circular table surrounded by simple chairs, no flags, no symbols of individual nations. This room had been built for one purpose, to respond if humanity ever faced an existential threat. General Hyun-soo of the United Defense Coalition stood at the head of the table. His weathered face reflected decades of military service, but none of that had prepared him for this day. The transmission is genuine, he said gravely. We've confirmed the presence of their fleet beyond Mars, exactly as we feared might happen someday. Defense Minister Nari shook her head in disbelief. Their technology must be centuries beyond ours. How can we possibly resist? They believe that's true, Hyun-soo said, a slight smile crossing his face. And that's our advantage. He pressed his palm against a scanner, and a holographic display appeared above the table, showing not just the alien fleet, but dozens of installations across Earth and the Moon that no public map acknowledged. For 70 years, we've been preparing, Hyun-soo continued. Ever since we recovered their scout ship in 1947, everything we've learned, everything we've built in secret, has been for this moment. President Do-hyun stood, his voice steady despite the weight of what was about to happen. The Artemis Protocol is now active. Authorization code, humanity endures. Around the table, each representative placed their palm on hidden scanners. Green confirmation lights blinked in sequence. Send our response, ordered President Do-hyun. One warning, as agreed. As the message beamed toward the waiting fleet, Hyun-soo looked around at the grim faces of Earth's leaders. They expect our surrender. They have no idea what humanity does when cornered. Aboard the Eternal Dominion, Lieutenant Minho's eyes widened as he received Earth's response. Commander, they've replied. Taiho turned, surprised at the speed. Display it. The main screen changed to show a simple text message in perfect Imperial standard. To the Galactic Hegemony, we acknowledge your presence and your demands. Be advised. Any hostile action against Earth or its people will be met with complete destruction. This is the only warning you will receive. For the first time in his long career, Commander Taiho felt a flicker of uncertainty. Not because of the threat itself, he had heard empty threats before, but because of the absolute confidence behind it. In 17 sectors and thousands of conquests, no species had ever responded like this. Grand Admiral Min-jae walked slowly around the holographic projection of Earth, studying the blue planet from all angles. His dark uniform, adorned with the silver emblems of countless victories, seemed to absorb the light around him. The command bridge of the Hegemony flagship hummed with activity as officers monitored the fleet systems, but they worked in hushed tones, sensing their leader's unease. Show me their response again, Min-jae ordered, his voice cutting through the silence. Communications Officer Sung-min nodded quickly. The holographic Earth disappeared, replaced by the simple text message that had arrived 12 hours earlier. To the Galactic Hegemony, we acknowledge your presence and your demands. Be advised, any hostile action against Earth or its people will be met with complete destruction. This is the only warning you will receive. Min-jae read it for perhaps the 20th time, searching for something he might have missed. In 300 years of service to the Hegemony, he had overseen the conquest of 37 worlds. None had responded like this. Analysis? He asked, turning to his senior staff. Tactical Commander Jinwoo stepped forward. The message contains no technical data suggesting advanced capabilities. Their orbital infrastructure is minimal. Primitive satellites, a small space station, nothing that poses a threat to our fleet. Then why such confidence? Min-jae wondered aloud. Science Director. Jiwoo cleared her throat softly. Admiral, there is something unusual in their historical records. According to our intelligence, they've had a remarkably unified military response to our arrival. For a species that typically operates as separate nation-states, this suggests... What, Director? That they may have been preparing for this encounter, she finished. Laughter erupted from Commander Taiho. Preparing? How could they possibly prepare for something they've never encountered? Our stealth systems are impenetrable. This is the first time humans have confirmed contact with an alien civilization. Perhaps, Jiwoo persisted, but our records show an unusual incident in their year 1947. Enough speculation, Min-jae interrupted. Their warning is clearly a bluff born of desperation. Send our response. They have 48 hours to reconsider their position, after which we will provide a demonstration of our power. As the message transmitted to Earth, Min-jae turned to Tactical. Commander Jinwoo, prepare a precision strike on their military installation in the region they call Nevada. Minimal force. We need their infrastructure intact. Yes, Admiral, Jinwoo replied, already plotting targeting coordinates. Alone later in his private quarters, Minjay reread intelligence reports about Earth. Something troubled him about this primitive world. Most species, when faced with the overwhelming might of the hegemony, responded with either immediate surrender or desperate pleas for negotiation. The humans had done neither. They had issued a warning, as if they were the ones in position of power. On Earth, evacuation orders. Spread across continents, massive convoys of vehicles clogged highways leading away from major cities. Underground shelters, built during the Cold War and secretly maintained for decades, opened their heavy doors to receive civilians. The activity was orderly, practiced as if the population had prepared for this day. In the hardened command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Hyun-soo watched the evacuation progress on multiple screens. Behind him, technicians monitored systems that officially didn't exist, activating defenses that had been hidden from the public for generations. Evacuation is at 63% completion, reported Colonel Jia, her fingers moving rapidly across her terminal. Rural areas are lagging behind schedule. Prioritize transportation to those regions, Hyun-soo ordered. The hegemony's response came in as expected. We have approximately 46 hours before they attempt their demonstration of force. Defense Minister Nari approached, carrying a tablet displaying the latest satellite imagery. Their fleet remains in position beyond Mars orbit, no movement yet toward Earth. They're following their standard conquest protocol, Hyun-soo noted, exactly as the recovered files indicated they would. He turned to the largest screen in the command center, which displayed a detailed map of Earth with countless blinking lights representing activated defense systems. Decades of secret development, trillions in hidden budgets, all for this moment. Status of the lunar facility? He asked. Artemis base is fully operational, Colonel Jia responded. All systems green. The prototype vessel is ready for launch. On your command. Hyun-soo nodded, his weathered face showing no emotion though his heart raced. Humanity had spent generations preparing in secret, ever since recovering that crashed scout ship. What they'd learned had changed everything. The knowledge that they weren't alone, and that what waited among the stars wasn't friendly. That discovery had done what nothing else could. It had unified humanity's fractured nations around a single purpose: survival. In Washington, D.C., President Do-hyun addressed a nervous nation from a secure bunker. His calm voice belied the gravity of the situation. My fellow Americans, as you know, we face an unprecedented challenge. The evacuation procedures now underway are not a sign of surrender, but of prudent preparation. For decades, our nation, along with many others around the world, has developed technologies and strategies for this very scenario. The camera pulled back to reveal a diverse group of world leaders standing behind him, a unified front representing nations that had traditionally been adversaries. Today I can reveal that the United Nations Security Council established a secret program in 1947 following the recovery of an extraterrestrial craft. This program, known as the Artemis Protocol, has been humanity's insurance policy against the day we now face. Halfway around the world, in a similar bunker beneath Beijing, Premier Han made an almost identical announcement to his citizens. In Moscow, in New Delhi, in every major capital, the same message went out. We have prepared. We stand united. We will not surrender. In orbit around Jupiter, hidden from the hegemony fleet by the massive planet's radiation belts, a small Earth vessel maintained silent watch. Its commander, Captain Junho, received encrypted updates about the evacuation progress. His ship, the Vigilant, represented the pinnacle of humanity's secret space program, a program that had developed along very different lines than the public NASA missions. Message from command, his communications officer reported. We are to maintain position, but prepare for possible engagement in approximately 45 hours. Junho nodded, studying the distant specks of light that represented the hegemony fleet. His ship was outnumbered hundreds to one, but that wasn't the point. His mission wasn't to win a battle, it was to survive long enough to deliver critical data about the enemy's tactics. Run final diagnostics on all systems, he ordered, and make sure the quantum transmitter is functioning perfectly. If we engage, every second of battle data needs to reach Earth. Throughout the solar system, similar vessels waited in hiding, a small secret fleet built not for victory, but for intelligence gathering. Each ship had a specific role in the coming conflict, pieces in a chess game, decades in the planning. As the deadline approached, humanity completed its preparations. Cities emptied, defense systems activated, and in underground bunkers around the world, military leaders waited tensely for the hegemony's first move. They had given their warning. Now they would see if the aliens were wise enough to heed it. Deadline has passed, Commander Yunji announced, her voice cutting through the tense silence on the bridge of the hegemony flagship. She stood rigid at her station, eyes fixed on the chronometer display. No further communication from Earth. Admiral Minjay nodded slowly, unsurprised. His years of experience had taught him that primitive species often required a demonstration of power before accepting reality. He'd seen it dozens of times before. Initial defiance followed by swift capitulation, once the technological gap became undeniably clear. "Prepare the disciplinary strike," he ordered. "Target their military installation in the region they call Nevada. Minimal force. We need their population and infrastructure intact for resource extraction." The bridge officers moved with practiced efficiency, entering coordinates and arming weapons systems. 5 hegemony warships detached from the key main fleet, sleek predators breaking from the pack. "Tactical display," Minjay commanded. The main view screen shifted to show Earth growing larger as the strike force accelerated toward it. The ships moved in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming in the sunlight as they passed the orbit of Earth's moon. Strike force entering Earth's upper atmosphere in 5 minutes, reported Tactical Commander Jinwoo. No defensive response detected. Admiral Minjay allowed himself a small smile. As expected, their warning was nothing but empty. "Sir," Officer Sungmin's alarmed voice cut through his words. "Energy spike. Massive power signature emanating from Earth's moon." "What?" Minjay spun toward her station. "The moon is uninhabited. Our scans showed it's coming from the dark side, sir. A region we couldn't properly scan because of electromagnetic interference. The energy reading it's off our scales." The tactical display flashed red as a brilliant beam of coherent light erupted. From the lunar surface, it sliced through space like a surgeon's blade, striking 3 of the hegemony warships before they could raise their shields. The vessels didn't explode. They simply came apart, split into perfect halves that tumbled away from each other, spilling atmosphere and crew into the vacuum. Dead silence fell across the bridge. In 17 sectors and thousands of conquests, no one had ever witnessed a weapon of such precision and power. "Evasive maneuvers," Jinwoo shouted, finding his voice. "Recall the remaining ships immediately." The 2 surviving warships veered sharply, abandoning their attack run and struggling to escape Earth's gravity well. They had nearly reached escape velocity when a new threat appeared on the tactical display. A sleek vessel rose from Earth's atmosphere, moving with impossible speed. It didn't match any known human design. Its hull was smooth, almost organic in appearance, with no visible propulsion system, yet it accelerated toward the fleeing hegemony ships at a rate that should have crushed any biological crew. "Impossible," whispered Science Director Jiwoo, her eyes wide as she studied the sensor readings. "They shouldn't have artificial gravity manipulation technology. Their development curve couldn't possibly have—" "Our intelligence was wrong," interrupted Admiral Minjay, watching as the human vessel matched course with the first hegemony ship. Instead of destroying it, the Earth vessel fired a precise burst of energy that disabled the hegemony ship's main power systems. The warship drifted, crippled but intact. The human vessel then repeated the process with the second ship, leaving both hegemony vessels dead, in space but with life support functioning. "They're being merciful," Jiwoo said softly. The communication system chimed. "Admiral," said Officer Sungmin, "the Earth vessel is transmitting directly to us." "Put it through," Minjay ordered, his voice tight. The main view screen changed to show the interior of the human vessel. A man in a simple dark uniform stood before the camera. He wore no insignia of rank, no decorations, just a small patch on his shoulder showing Earth against a star field. "This is Captain Junho of Earth defense vessel Defiant," the man said calmly. "Your ships have not been destroyed, merely disabled. Their crews will survive until you send rescue." Minjay stepped forward. "How is this possible? Your species has barely achieved rudimentary spaceflight." Captain Junho smiled slightly. "That's what we wanted you to think. We recovered your scout ship that crashed in our region called New Mexico in 1947. We've had decades to understand your technology and improve upon it." The camera pulled back to show more of the human vessel's bridge. It was both familiar and alien, recognizable stations for navigation and weapons, but configured in ways no hegemony ship would use. "Your technology follows a logical progression path," Junho continued. "Predictable. We took a different approach. While you refined existing systems, we explored alternatives your empire abandoned centuries ago." Admiral Minjay struggled to maintain his composure. "You cannot hope to defeat our entire fleet. This demonstration changes nothing." "This wasn't a demonstration of our military capability, Admiral," Junho replied. "It was a demonstration of our restraint. We could have destroyed all 5 ships, we chose not to." The human captain's expression hardened. "We warned you once. That was already more consideration than humans typically give to existential threats. We've nearly destroyed ourselves multiple times throughout our history. Those experiences taught us to take such threats seriously." The Earth vessel began to move away from the disabled hegemony ships. "This demonstration is complete," Junho said. "Your move, Admiral." The transmission cut off and the tactical display showed the human vessel accelerating toward Earth. Then, impossibly, it seemed to fold space around itself, disappearing from sensors entirely. "They have dimensional slip technology," Jiwoo whispered, the color draining from her face. "That's generations beyond anything we expected." In the silence that followed, Admiral Minjay stared at the tactical display, his mind racing. The disabled hegemony ships floated helplessly in Earth orbit, a clear message to the rest of the fleet. "Sir," Commander Yunji said hesitantly, "should we dispatch rescue vessels for our crews?" Minjay nodded slowly. "Yes, and prepare a full report for the Sovereign Council." "What will you tell them?" asked Jiwoo. Minjay turned to face his senior staff, his expression grave. "The truth. We are not facing primitives at all. We are facing a species that has been preparing for this moment for generations." Commander Taiho, who had been silent during the entire encounter, finally spoke. "They've been hiding their true capabilities, but why? Why maintain the facade of a less advanced civilization?" "Because," Minjay replied, "they were waiting for us, or something like us." He turned back to the tactical display, studying the blue planet with new respect. "They knew we were coming. They've known for decades." In the observation deck later that cycle, Minjay stood alone, watching Earth rotate slowly against the backdrop of stars. For the first time in his long career, he faced a genuine question. Continue the invasion as planned or withdraw and reassess? The Sovereign Council would demand action, demand that he use the full might of the hegemony fleet to crush this defiance. They would see anything less as weakness, but Minjay had not risen to Grand Admiral by being foolish. The humans had revealed only a fraction of their capabilities, he was certain. They had shown restraint, not weakness but confidence. "Sir." It was Jiwoo entering the observation deck quietly. "The rescue vessels have recovered our crews from the disabled ships." "Casualties?" "None, sir. The humans disabled our vessels with surgical precision. Life support remained functional throughout." Minjay nodded slowly. "Another message, another warning. The Sovereign Council has responded to our report," Jiwoo continued. "They are displeased. They've ordered an immediate full-scale assault on the planet." Of course they had. The Council, safe in their palaces thousands of light-years away, couldn't comprehend what they were facing here. They saw only a defiant, primitive world that needed to be taught its place in the galaxy. "Prepare the fleet," Minjay said quietly. "We attack in 12 hours." As Jiwoo left, Minjay remained at the window, staring at the distant blue planet. In all his years of service to the hegemony, he had never disobeyed an order. But for the first time he wondered if victory was possible or even desirable. The humans had given their warning, and soon they would show what happened when that warning went unheeded. Admiral Minjay stood motionless on the command bridge, his reflection faint in the reinforced viewport. Outside, the void of space was broken by the organized chaos of his fleet, hundreds of warships arranging themselves into attack formation. The flagship's engines hummed at full power, vibrating subtly through the deck plates beneath his polished boots. "All vessels report ready for combat operations," Commander Jinwoo announced from the tactical station. "Fighter squadrons are launching now." Minjay nodded silently. The Sovereign Council had been unmoved by his concerns. Their response had been predictable in its arrogance. The hegemony does not retreat. Primitive defiance must be met with overwhelming force. 17 sectors, thousands of worlds. None had successfully resisted the hegemony. This blue planet would not be the first. "Begin the approach," Minjay ordered, his voice steady despite his misgivings. "Standard conquest formation. Deploy planetary bombardment units at the rear." The massive fleet moved forward as one, breaking orbit around Mars and accelerating toward Earth. On view screens throughout the flagship, tactical displays showed the attack plan. Fighters would sweep ahead to eliminate any orbital defenses, followed by medium warships targeting military installations, with the heavy bombardment vessels delivering the decisive blows to government centers. "Earth continues to show minimal defensive posture," reported Science Director Jiwoo, studying her sensor readings with growing confusion. "I'm detecting no significant military response, no activation of defense systems, nothing beyond their standard satellite network." "Could their earlier display have been their only defense capability?" Commander Taiho asked hopefully. "Perhaps. They exhausted their resources in that single demonstration." Minjay didn't reply. The human's apparent passivity made him more uneasy, not less. He had commanded too many battles to believe in such convenient explanations. "Fighter squadrons have passed lunar orbit," Jinwoo reported. "No resistance encountered." The bridge crew relaxed visibly. Perhaps this would be a standard conquest. "After all, sir," Officer Sungmin's alarmed voice cut through the growing confidence. "Energy signatures activating worldwide." "What? Where?" Minjay demanded, striding to her station. "Everywhere. They're appearing from the oceans, from mountain ranges, from what we thought were civilian structures." Sungmin's fingers flew across her console, struggling to catalogue the sudden influx of data. They weren't detectable until this moment. No energy emissions, no heat signatures. The tactical display transformed before their eyes. What had seemed an undefended planet suddenly bristled with hundreds of defense platforms, rising from ocean depths, emerging from mountain hideaways, decloaking in orbit. "Stealth technology," whispered Jiwoo. "Beyond anything we've encountered." "Evasive." "Maneuvers," Jinwoo shouted to the fleet. "All ships break formation." The order came too late. The Earth defense grid fired simultaneously, but not with conventional weapons. Instead of energy beams or projectiles, the platforms created localized gravitational distortions, micro-singularities that warped space itself around the hegemony ships. On the tactical display, Minjay watched in horror as dozens of his vessels were crushed, torn apart, or flung into each other. Fighter squadrons scattered, their neat formations dissolving into chaos as pilots struggled against forces that seemed to defy physics itself. "How?" demanded Taiho, watching as a heavy cruiser collapsed in on itself, crushed by suddenly intensified gravity. How could they have developed such technologies? They took a different path, Minjay realized, remembering the human captain's words. They explored alternatives our civilization abandoned centuries ago. From Earth's surface, new threats emerged, squadrons of fighters launching from hidden bases. They were small, agile craft, unlike anything in the Imperial records, moving with precision that suggested inertial dampening systems far beyond what should have been possible for human technology. The Earth fighters targeted the hegemony's command, vessels with surgical strikes, avoiding unnecessary destruction where possible. Their goal seemed to be disabling rather than destroying, a strategy that spoke of confidence, not desperation. "Our first wave has lost 60% combat effectiveness," Jinwoo reported, his voice tight. "Second wave is engaging but reporting Similar difficulties. The human vessels seem able to predict our tactical responses. Of course they can, Minjay said quietly. They've been studying us for decades. They know our battle doctrines, our technology, our weaknesses. We know almost nothing about them. The flagship shuddered as gravitational distortions rippled through nearby space. Warning lights flashed across command consoles. Structural integrity compromised on decks 17 through 24, reported Engineering Officer Doyen. We're venting atmosphere in the aft sections. Minjay gripped the tactical display as the ship trembled again. Status of the fleet? Devastated, sir, Jinwoo replied, his military discipline failing to hide his shock. We've lost over 200 vessels. Another 100 are crippled or unable to maneuver effectively. The humans are systematically targeting our command and control systems. On his private command channel, a transmission broke through from Earth. The screen showed a face Minjay recognized, General Hyun-soo of Earth's United Defense Coalition. Admiral Minjay, the human said, his weathered face showing no triumph, only grim determination. You should withdraw your remaining forces while you still can. The hegemony does not retreat, Minjay replied automatically, though the words felt hollow even as he spoke them. A foolish policy, Hyun-soo observed, especially when facing an enemy you clearly underestimated. Minjay studied the human general. How? How did you prepare so thoroughly for our arrival? While you conquered, we prepared, Hyun-soo answered. Simply. While you stagnated, we innovated. Our path of development wasn't driven by expansion, but by survival, against ourselves first, and now against you. The transmission shifted to show imagery of underground facilities, vast manufacturing complexes hidden beneath mountains and oceans, technological marvels developed in secret over decades. Your scout ship that crashed in 1947 taught us much, Hyun-soo continued, but more importantly, it warned us. We learned that the galaxy wasn't empty, and that what waited among the stars wasn't friendly. Another violent shudder ran through the flagship as Earth fighters targeted its propulsion systems. That knowledge did what nothing else could, the human general said. It unified humanity's fractured nations around a single purpose, survival. For the first time in our bloody history, we worked together, pooling resources and knowledge. Everything we've built in the last 70 years has been preparation for this day. Minjay looked up as Commander Jinwoo approached with a damage report. The numbers were catastrophic. Over half the hegemony fleet destroyed or disabled in less than 30 minutes of combat. You've made your point, General, Minjay said, turning back to the transmission. But the Sovereign Council will not accept this outcome. They will send another fleet larger than this one. Perhaps, Hyun-soo acknowledged, but now they'll know what waits for them. And we've only shown a fraction of our capabilities. The transmission ended, leaving Minjay to contemplate the ruins of his once mighty fleet. Ships continued to fall. To the Earth's defenses, their destruction reflected in the constantly updating tactical display. In his 3 centuries of service to the hegemony, Minjay had never faced defeat. Not true defeat. Minor setbacks, yes. Pyrrhic victories occasionally, but never this swift, comprehensive dismantling of his forces. Admiral, Jinwoo said quietly, we've lost containment on our primary reactor. Engineering reports critical failure imminent. Minjay looked around the bridge at his crew, loyal servants of an empire that had never known defeat. They deserved better than to die here, making a pointless last stand for the pride of distant rulers. Order all surviving ships to disengage, he commanded. Retreat beyond lunar orbit and regroup. He turned to the viewport, watching as Earth grew smaller on the main viewer. The blue planet that should have been conquest number 74 had instead dealt the hegemony its first true defeat in millennia. But Minjay knew this wasn't over. The Sovereign Council would not accept this outcome. They would demand vengeance, demand that Earth be reduced to ashes, regardless of the cost. And so, as his crippled flagship limped away from the battlefield, Admiral Minjay made a decision that would forever change his standing in the hegemony. Prepare the singularity weapons, he ordered, his voice cold with resolve. If Earth will not submit, then it shall not exist. Admiral Minjay stood alone on the observation deck of his crippled flagship, watching as the remnants of his once mighty fleet scattered across the solar system. Through the viewport, Earth was a distant blue marble, deceptively peaceful against the void. The constant emergency alerts had been silenced. There was no point listening to what he already knew. Over 60% of his forces had been destroyed or disabled in less than 12 hours. The door hissed open behind him. He didn't need to turn to know who had entered. "Report, Commander," he said quietly. Commander Jinwu cleared his throat. "Singularity weapons are being prepared as ordered, Admiral. Estimated time to deployment, 30 minutes. Min-Jae nodded, his reflection grim in the reinforced glass. The Sovereign Council's orders had been clear. If Earth could not be conquered, it would be destroyed. The singularity weapons, the most destructive in the hegemony's arsenal, would create an artificial black hole at Earth's core. The planet would collapse in on itself, leaving nothing but scattered debris. "The Council will be pleased," Minji said, though the words tasted bitter. "Sir," Jinwu hesitated, an unusual break in his military discipline. "The humans have shown restraint thus far. They disabled many of our vessels without destroying them. Perhaps what, Commander? We should show similar mercy?" Minji turned to face his officer, seeing his own doubts reflected in the younger man's eyes. "The hegemony does not retreat. The hegemony does not forgive defiance." Even as he spoke the words, Min-Jae wondered when he had stopped believing them. 3 centuries of loyal service, and now at the end, he found himself questioning everything. "Begin the final approach," he ordered. "We'll launch from minimum safe distance." Jinwu saluted and left. Alone again, Min-Jae turned back to the viewport, watching as Earth grew slightly larger. In his long career, he had overseen the subjugation of 37 worlds. None had ever made him question his duty, until now. The ship shuddered suddenly, emergency alarms blaring back to life. "Admiral, to the bridge!" Officer Sungmin's panicked voice came through the comm system. "Spatial distortion detected. Something's happening to—" The message cut off as the observation deck lurched violently. Min-Jae grabbed a support beam as the artificial gravity fluctuated. The stars outside the viewport seemed to smear, stretching into lines of light as space itself distorted around the flagship. When the distortion cleared, the view outside had changed completely. Earth was gone. Instead, the flagship floated near a massive space station in high orbit, around what appeared to be Earth's moon. The structure was enormous, a spinning ring at least 5 kilometers in diameter, with extending arms housing what seemed to be weapons platforms and docking bays. "Admiral!" Commander Jinwu's voice came through the emergency channel. "We've been moved. I don't understand how, but we're no longer in Earth orbit." Before Min-Jae could respond, new alarms sounded. "Multiple breaches reported. We're being boarded." Throughout the crippled flagship, armored figures in advanced environmental suits entered through forced airlocks. They moved with practiced efficiency, neutralizing resistance with non-lethal weapons that rendered hegemony soldiers unconscious without permanent harm. On the bridge, Min-Jae watched the security feeds with growing disbelief. The boarding parties weren't killing his crew. They were systematically disabling the ship's weapons systems, particularly the singularity deployment platforms. "Sir," said Tactical Officer Yunji, "they're heading directly for command. They know our layout perfectly." Of course they do," Min-Jae replied quietly. "They've had one of our ships since 1947. When the bridge doors slid open, Min-Jae was waiting, standing straight-backed with his hands visible at his sides. The boarding party was led by a woman whose armor bore minimal insignia, just a small Earth emblem on her shoulder. "Admiral Min-Jae," she said, her voice slightly distorted through her helmet speaker. "I am Commander Jia of Earth Special Forces. You are invited to a diplomatic meeting." "Invited?" Min-Jae raised an eyebrow. "Is that what you call armed boarding actions in your culture?" "We call it preventing genocide," she replied evenly. "Our sensors detected your singularity weapons preparing for launch." She gestured toward the door. "The representatives of Earth are waiting. Your senior officers may accompany you." With little choice, Min-Jae nodded to Jinwu and Science Director Jiwoo to join him. They were escorted through their own ship, past unconscious crew members being tended to by human medics, and transferred to a small, sleek shuttle. The journey to the space station was short and silent. Through the shuttle's viewport, Min-Jae studied the structure with professional assessment. It was a masterpiece of engineering, clearly influenced by hegemony design principles, but modified and improved upon in ways he couldn't fully comprehend. How long has this station existed? He finally asked Commander Jia. 30 years, she replied. It was our first major off-world construction project. We've built 6 others throughout the solar system since then, hidden from our sensors. She nodded. We developed stealth technologies specifically designed to counter hegemony detection systems. The shuttle docked smoothly with the station. As they disembarked, Minjay was struck by the activity around them. Humans in various uniforms moved purposefully through wide corridors, many giving the alien visitors curious glances, but continuing their duties without pausing. They were led to a large meeting chamber where representatives from Earth's nations awaited. Minjay recognized General Hyunsu immediately, standing beside a silver-haired man he assumed was a political leader. Admiral Minjay, the older man greeted him. I am President Do-hyun of the United Earth Council. Thank you for joining us. I had little choice in the matter, Minjay replied dryly. There are always choices, Do-hyun said. You chose to order the use of singularity weapons against our planet. We chose to prevent that, rather than destroying your flagship outright. Minjay studied the assembled humans. There were perhaps 20 of them, military officers, politicians, scientists, representing various regions of Earth based on their different physical characteristics and clothing styles. What do you want from me? He asked finally. General, Hyunsu stepped forward. Understanding, you threatened our home. We gave you one warning, more consideration than we typically give threats to our existence. Throughout our history, we've nearly destroyed ourselves multiple times. Those experiences taught us to take existential threats seriously. Yet you showed restraint, Minjay observed. You could have destroyed my entire fleet. We're not interested in destruction, President Do-hyun said. We want survival, security, peace if possible. A large screen activated on the wall, showing the remaining hegemony ships retreating to the outer solar system. Your surviving vessels have been allowed to escape, Do-hyun continued. They carry data recorders with evidence of your defeat. The galaxy should know Earth will not be conquered. Minjay considered this. The Sovereign Council will not accept this outcome. They will send more ships, more weapons. Perhaps, Hyunsu acknowledged, but now they'll know what waits for them. And we've barely shown a fraction of our capabilities. In the days that followed, Minjay was not treated as a prisoner but as a diplomatic guest. He was given limited access to the station, always under escort, but treated with respect. What he saw changed his understanding of humanity forever. He learned that humans had been studying crashed hegemony vessels for decades, developing technologies along entirely different paths than the Empire had imagined possible. Where the hegemony had focused on brute force, humans had explored efficiency. Where imperial scientists had abandoned certain research as unpromising, humans had persisted and made breakthroughs. On the 7th day, he was brought back to the meeting chamber. President Do-hyun was waiting. We're returning you to your people. Admiral, he said simply, your flagship has been repaired enough for the journey home. The singularity weapons have been neutralized, but we've left your conventional systems intact. Minjay studied the human leader. Why? Why not keep me as a hostage? Why allow any of us to return? Because we want you to deliver a message, Do-hyun replied. One more clear than any transmission we could send. When Minjay returned to hegemony space months later, he delivered his report directly to the Sovereign Council. In the Grand Chamber, surrounded by the Empire's most powerful leaders, he spoke the unthinkable truth. Earth cannot be conquered with our current technology, he concluded. Any attempt would result in catastrophic losses for minimal gain. My recommendation is clear. Earth systems are to be avoided at all costs. They only warn once. His words sent shockwaves through the Empire. For the first time in millennia, the hegemony faced a power it could not simply overwhelm. Debate raged for months about how to respond, but in the end, pragmatism won over pride. A quarantine zone was established around Earth's solar system, not to contain the humans, but to prevent hegemony citizens from encountering them. Within a decade, humanity began expanding beyond their solar system, not as conquerors, but as a stabilizing force against imperial powers. Other subjugated species looked to Earth as a symbol of resistance. Some reached out in secret, seeking alliances and protection. The hegemony, for the first time in millennia, began to contract rather than expand. Systems on the empire's edges declared independence, emboldened by Earth's example. The age of unchallenged, imperial dominance was ending, and throughout the galaxy a new phrase entered diplomatic lexicon: an Earth warning, meaning a final chance that would not be repeated. As for Admiral Minje, he never commanded a fleet again. But his final service to the Empire, telling the truth when others would have preferred comforting lies, would ultimately save millions of hegemony citizens from futile deaths in a war that could not be won. On Earth, the defense grid remained vigilant. Humanity remained united, and the stars beckoned not with threat but with promise.